Göbekli Tepe, the mystery that rewrote human history. On a lonely hill in southeastern Turkey, beneath layers of dust, stone, and forgotten centuries, lies one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever discovered. The site is called Göbekli Tepe. Radiocarbon dating places its earliest known construction around 9600 BC, during the Pre-Pottery Neolithic period, a time long before writing, metal tools, cities, or fully developed agriculture. Yet beneath this unremarkable hill, archaeologists uncovered monumental architecture, so sophisticated that it forced historians to rethink the story of civilization itself. For generations, scholars believed they understood how civilization began. First came agriculture. Farming created food surpluses. Food surpluses allowed people to settle in villages. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. Only then, historians believed, did religion, monumental architecture, and organized society emerge. Göbekli Tepe shattered that narrative. Here stood massive stone monuments built thousands of years before Stonehenge, thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt, and long before the invention of writing. Even more astonishing, they appear to have been built by communities living before fully developed agriculture, though evidence increasingly suggests seasonal settlement, extensive food processing, and experimentation with wild cereals. The discovery raised a question that continues to echo through archaeology. How could people without cities, kings, metal tools, or wheels create something so extraordinary? And perhaps an even deeper question remains. What if everything we thought we knew about the birth of civilization is wrong? A discovery hidden in plain sight. Ironically, Göbekli Tepe was never truly lost. The site was first noted during an archaeological survey in 1963. Researchers saw scattered stones protruding from the ground, and assumed they belonged to a medieval cemetery. Nothing about the hill seemed especially remarkable. For more than 30 years, the site attracted little attention. Then, in 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited the area. Almost immediately, he recognized that the stones were far older than anyone had imagined. Excavations began the following year. What emerged from the earth stunned the archaeological world. Massive circular enclosures appeared. Huge T-shaped limestone pillars rose from the ground like silent giants. Some stood more than 18 feet tall and weighed many tons. Their surfaces were covered with intricate carvings of foxes, snakes, vultures, lions, wild boars, gazelles, and scorpions. These were not crude markings. They were sophisticated works of symbolic art, created by people who supposedly belonged to a primitive age. Schmidt famously described Göbekli Tepe as the world's first temple. For many years, that interpretation dominated discussions of the site. Today, however, the story has become far more complicated and far more fascinating. The Pillars of Prehistory. At the heart of Göbekli Tepe stand its most iconic features: the enormous T-shaped pillars. Many researchers believe these pillars represent highly stylized human beings, rather than simple structural supports. Several display carved arms, hands, belts, and loincloths, transforming stone into symbolic human figures. Standing among them can be an eerie experience. The pillars seem almost alive. Some researchers have compared them to silent guardians, watching over sacred ceremonies long forgotten by history. The carvings themselves remain one of the site's greatest mysteries. Were they religious symbols, clan emblems, mythological stories, astronomical markers, or perhaps a symbolic language whose meaning has been lost forever? No one knows. Yet many scholars suspect the animals were chosen deliberately. Predators such as lions and snakes appear frequently. Vultures, associated in many ancient cultures with death and the afterlife, are particularly prominent. Some researchers believe the carvings may reflect beliefs about life, death, and the cosmos. Others suggest they encode seasonal knowledge or celestial observations. Were these images merely decoration? Or were they part of a symbolic system we no longer understand? Whatever their meaning, they reveal minds capable of abstraction, symbolism, and imagination. Was this really a temple? For years, Göbekli Tepe was celebrated as a revolutionary idea, a temple built before agriculture. According to the original interpretation, groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers gathered periodically on the hill to perform ceremonies before returning to their seasonal migrations. It was a powerful theory, but recent discoveries have complicated the picture. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of domestic activity across the site. Large cisterns suggest sophisticated rainwater collection systems. Researchers have identified structures that appear to have been used for everyday living. Most striking of all, excavators have documented more than 10,000 basalt grinding vessels and tools, along with enormous quantities of animal bones bearing butchery marks. The scale is astonishing. This was not the evidence of a small group preparing occasional meals. Instead, it suggests food processing on a massive scale, possibly supporting large communal gatherings involving hundreds or even thousands of people. The discoveries have transformed scholarly debate. Instead of a purely ceremonial center, Göbekli Tepe increasingly looks like a place where ritual and daily life existed side by side. The line separating temple and village has become remarkably blurred. The question is no longer whether religion came before civilization. The question is whether religion, settlement, food production, and social organization emerged together, in ways we do not yet fully understand. Did religion build civilization? One reason Göbekli Tepe fascinates people around the world is that it challenges our assumptions about ancient humanity. Modern societies often imagine hunter-gatherers as small, simple groups struggling merely to survive. Yet Göbekli Tepe tells a different story. Building these monuments required planning, cooperation, engineering, and leadership. Hundreds of people may have worked together to quarry, transport, carve, and erect the enormous stones. No evidence suggests they were controlled by kings or powerful states. There were no armies, no bureaucracies, no centralized governments. Instead, shared beliefs and collective identity may have been enough to unite large communities. If that interpretation is correct, then monumental architecture did not arise because governments became powerful. Rather, governments may have emerged later from social structures, originally created around shared rituals and communal projects. In that sense, religion may not have been a product of civilization. It may have helped create the conditions that made civilization possible. Or was it the last stand of an older world? Yet another theory turns the entire story upside down. What if Göbekli Tepe was not the beginning of something new? What if it was the end of something old? As agriculture spread across the Fertile Crescent, ancient hunter-gatherer traditions may have come under pressure. The world of wild animals, seasonal migrations, and ancestral myths was slowly disappearing. Some scholars have suggested that sites like Göbekli Tepe may represent a cultural response to that transformation. In this interpretation, the monuments were not celebrations of the future. They were monuments to a vanishing past. The countless carvings of foxes, vultures, snakes, and wild boars suddenly take on new meaning. They may have symbolized identities, traditions, and beliefs that people feared losing. Göbekli Tepe may not have been civilization's first chapter. It may have been the final masterpiece of a world already beginning to fade. It is a haunting possibility. A brief timeline of deep time. c. 9600 BC, the dawn of Taş Tepeler. Construction begins at Göbekli Tepe and related sites across southeastern Anatolia. Monumental pillars are carved thousands of years before writing or metal tools. c. 8000 BC, the paradoxical abandonment. The great enclosures fall out of use. Structures gradually fill with debris through a combination of human activity, roof collapses, erosion, and natural landslides. c. 3000 BC, Stonehenge and the first writing. Nearly 6,500 years after Göbekli Tepe's earliest monuments. The first phases of Stonehenge appear and cuneiform writing emerges in Mesopotamia. c. 2560 BC, the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Egyptians built the Great Pyramid. Remarkably, the builders of Giza are chronologically closer to the modern smartphone than they are to the earliest builders of Göbekli Tepe.
The mystery of the abandonment. For decades, one of the most dramatic stories associated with Göbekli Tepe involved its disappearance. The site appeared to have been intentionally buried beneath enormous quantities of soil and rubble. Klaus Schmidt believed this was a deliberate act. According to that interpretation, the builders intentionally filled the enclosures as part of a ritual closure. The idea captured public imagination. Why would people bury one of the greatest monuments they had ever created? Yet recent research has challenged this view. Archaeologists studying the site's architecture have proposed that some of the infilling may have occurred naturally. Evidence suggests the structures were likely roofed. Over centuries, roofs may have collapsed. The enclosures were built into slope hollows, making them vulnerable to mudslides, erosion, and landslides. Instead of a single dramatic burial event, some researchers now envision a much slower process in which nature gradually reclaimed the monuments. The truth remains uncertain. Some structures may have been intentionally backfilled, while others succumbed to environmental forces. For now, the mystery endures. And sometimes mysteries become more fascinating when the answers grow less certain. The Stone Hills Civilization. One of the most important discoveries of recent years is that Göbekli Tepe was not alone. Archaeologists now recognize it as part of a much larger prehistoric landscape known as Taş Tepeler, or Stone Hills. Increasingly, researchers view the region not as a collection of isolated sites, but as a connected cultural landscape stretching across southeastern Anatolia. Among these sites, Karahan Tepe has emerged as one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. There, archaeologists uncovered monumental structures similar to those at Göbekli Tepe, including a remarkable pillar carved with a three-dimensional human face. For many researchers, this discovery strongly supports the idea that the T-shaped pillars represent human beings. Other sites continue to expand our understanding of this ancient world. At Sayburç, archaeologists uncovered a carved relief inside a communal building, showing a human figure flanked by dangerous animals. Many researchers regard it as the oldest known narrative scene ever carved in stone, the earliest surviving visual story created by human hands. This discovery is profound. It suggests that the people of the Stone Hills were not merely builders. They were storytellers. They created symbols, narratives, and shared cultural memories. The mystery has become far bigger than a single hill. It now encompasses an entire civilization we are only beginning to understand. A glimpse into a forgotten evening. Imagine arriving at Göbekli Tepe 11,000 years ago. The sun is sinking below the horizon. Fires flicker among the stone circles. Groups of people gather from distant valleys and hills. The scent of roasting meat drifts through the air. Stories are told. Songs are sung. Shadows dance across towering pillars carved with creatures of the wild. As darkness deepens, the great stone figures seem almost alive. Perhaps rituals are performed. Perhaps ancient myths are recited. Children listen wide-eyed as elders explain the meanings hidden within the carvings. We cannot know exactly what happened there, but moments like these almost certainly occurred. The stones are silent, yet they still hint at the humanity of those who gathered among them. What we still don't know. Despite decades of excavation, most of Göbekli Tepe remains unexplored. Many of the biggest questions remain unanswered. Were the pillars representations of gods, ancestors, or symbolic beings? Was the site occupied year-round or only seasonally? Did religious gatherings encourage the rise of agriculture? Or did changing food production practices encourage new forms of ritual life? Why were some structures filled and abandoned? How extensive was the larger Taş Tepeler cultural network? And what lies beneath the vast portions of the site that remain untouched? Each discovery answers one question and creates several more. A different view of ancient humanity. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Göbekli Tepe is not archaeological at all. It is human. For generations, people imagined the distant past as a world populated by primitive minds. Göbekli Tepe challenges that assumption. The people who built these monuments appear to have shared many of the same concerns that still shape human life today. They sought meaning, they grappled with mortality, they created symbols, stories, and places of gathering. They worked together toward goals larger than themselves. 11,000 years later, their names are gone. Their language is lost. Their beliefs remain hidden behind stone carvings and buried ruins. Yet their achievements continue to speak. And perhaps the greatest mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not what these people built. Perhaps it is who they were. Were they the first architects of civilization? Or the last guardians of an older world that was disappearing before their eyes? For now, the ancient stones remain silent. And that silence may be the most fascinating clue of all.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Surplus. Definition: more of something than is needed. Example: good farming gave people a surplus of food for the winter. 2. Protruding. Definition: sticking out from something else. Example: several large stones were protruding from the ground. 3. Stylized. Definition: made in a simple or special artistic style, instead of looking completely real. Example: the stone figures were stylized human forms. 4. Emblem. Definition: a picture or sign that stands for a group, idea, or belief. Example: the eagle became an emblem of strength. 5. Predators. Definition: animals that hunt and eat other animals. Example: lions are powerful predators. 6. Prominent. Definition: easy to notice or very important. Example: vultures are one of the most prominent animals in the carvings. 7. Abstraction. Definition: an idea or image that is not meant to look exactly like something real. Example: the carvings showed abstraction instead of realistic pictures. 8. Cisterns. Definition: large containers or underground spaces used to collect and store water. Example: the ancient people built cisterns to save rainwater. 9. Basalt. Definition: a very hard, dark volcanic rock. Example: many grinding tools were made from basalt. 10. Communal. Definition: shared and used by a group of people. Example: they gathered in a communal building for meetings. 11. Blurred. Definition: made less clear or harder to separate. Example: the difference between a temple and a village became blurred. 12. Quarry. Verb. Definition: to cut or take stone from the ground. Example: workers quarried large stones for the pillars. 13. Bureaucracies. Definition: government systems with many offices and officials. Example: ancient builders had no bureaucracies to organize their work. 14. Enclosure. Definition: an area surrounded by walls, stones, or fences. Example: the people gathered inside a large stone enclosure. 15. Cuneiform. Definition: one of the world's earliest writing systems, made with wedge-shaped marks on clay. Example: cuneiform writing appeared thousands of years after Göbekli Tepe. 16. Envision. Definition: to imagine or picture something in your mind. Example: scientists envisioned different ways the site was used. 17. Reclaimed. Definition: taken back by nature after people stopped using it. Example: over time, the land reclaimed the ancient buildings. 18. Backfilled. Definition: filled again with soil, rocks, or other material. Example: some stone circles were carefully backfilled with earth. 19. Succumbed. Definition: gave in to something stronger or could no longer resist it. Example: some structures succumbed to erosion and weather. 20. Relief. Art. Definition: a picture carved into stone or another hard surface. so that it stands out. Example: the relief showed a man beside two wild animals. 21. Encompasses. Definition: includes or covers many different things. Example: the ancient culture encompasses many archaeological sites. 22. Flicker. Definition: to shine or move with an unsteady light. Example: the fire began to flicker as the wind grew stronger. 23. Grappled. Definition: tried hard to understand or deal with a difficult problem. Example: ancient people grappled with questions about life and death. 24. Mortality. Definition: the fact that all people must die someday. Example: the carvings may have reflected ideas about mortality.
Comprehension questions. 1. What is Göbekli Tepe, and why is it considered one of the world's greatest archaeological discoveries? Answer: Göbekli Tepe is an ancient stone monument in southeastern Turkey. It is considered one of the world's greatest archaeological discoveries because it is more than 11,000 years old and changed our understanding of how civilization began. 2. Around what year was Göbekli Tepe first built? Answer: the earliest known construction began around 9600 BC during the Pre-Pottery Neolithic period. 3. How did Göbekli Tepe challenge the traditional story of civilization? Answer: historians once believed that farming came first and that temples were built later. Göbekli Tepe suggests that large religious monuments may have existed before fully developed agriculture. 4. Who recognized the true importance of Göbekli Tepe in 1994? Answer: German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized that the site was much older and more important than previously believed. 5. What are the large T-shaped pillars believed to represent? Answer: many researchers believe the pillars represent highly stylized human figures because some have carved arms, hands, belts, and loincloths. 6. Why are the animal carvings on the pillars important? Answer: the carvings may have had symbolic or religious meanings. Some researchers think they are connected to myths, death, nature, or the stars. 7. What discoveries suggest that people may have lived at Göbekli Tepe instead of only visiting it for ceremonies? Answer: archaeologists found homes or living spaces, rainwater cisterns, more than 10,000 grinding tools, and many animal bones, suggesting that people stayed there for long periods or returned regularly. 8. Why are the 10,000 grinding stones important? Answer: they show that large amounts of food were prepared, suggesting that many people gathered there for feasts or other important events. 9. What is the last stand hypothesis about Göbekli Tepe? Answer: it suggests that Göbekli Tepe was not the beginning of civilization, but the final effort of hunter-gatherers to preserve their old beliefs and traditions as farming spread across the region. 10. Why do archaeologists disagree about how Göbekli Tepe was abandoned? Answer: some believe the builders intentionally filled the enclosures as part of a ritual. Others think the site slowly filled with soil because of roof collapses, erosion, and landslides. 11. What is Taş Tepeler and why is it important? Answer: Taş Tepeler, or stone hills, is a group of ancient archaeological sites in southeastern Turkey. It shows that Göbekli Tepe was part of a much larger prehistoric culture. 12. What important discovery was made at Karahan Tepe? Answer: archaeologists found a large stone pillar carved with a three-dimensional human face, supporting the idea that the T-shaped pillars represent human figures. 13. Why is the carved relief at Sayburç considered special? Answer: many researchers believe it is the world's oldest known narrative scene, showing that people were already telling stories through art more than 11,000 years ago. 14. According to the article, what does Göbekli Tepe teach us about ancient people? Answer: it shows that ancient people were creative, organized, cooperative, and capable of building impressive monuments, long before cities and written language existed. 15. What is the greatest unanswered question about Göbekli Tepe? Answer: many answers are possible. One of the greatest questions is whether its builders were the first architects of civilization or the last guardians of an older way of life that was disappearing. Discussion question 16. Which theory do you find more convincing, that Göbekli Tepe helped create civilization, or that it was the last great monument of a fading hunter-gatherer culture? Explain your answer using evidence from the article. Answers will vary. Students should support their opinions with examples from the article, such as the evidence of ritual activity, food preparation, the Taş Tepeler network, or the last stand hypothesis.